So I am doing my response on Doug Jones. Doug Jones is a distinguished actor with many star roles. Although if I showed you a picture of his face, you might not recognize him at all. This is because Doug specializes in creature acting. Although he has acted in many films in his, quote unquote, true face, and done some voice work, the majority of his roles involve wearing a costume of some sort that obscure his identity. Listing just a few of those roles, we have the Silver Surfer in the Fantastic Four, the Fawn in Pan's Labyrinth, the Amphibian Man in The Shape of Water, Abe Sapien in Hellboy 1 and 2, and if you're a Star Trek fan, he is Saru in the Star Trek Discovery series. Being a creature actor, it is no less of an intensive craft than traditional acting, and some would even argue that it is even more difficult since the actor needs to convey emotion and communicate through the barrier of the costume. Now that kind of have a little primer on Doug Jones, let's talk about the techniques he uses. Let's talk about the technique he uses to get into character. First, since most of his characters are based outside of reality, method acting techniques aren't as useful as they would be for a traditional actor. Instead, Mr. Jones tends to rely more on technical acting approaches to his work. He has stated that when he needs to connect with a character that he is playing, he'll go to a dance studio that has floor to ceiling mirrors and physically move in the movements of that character or the creature that he is playing so he can find their home stance, whether that be in someone walking on two legs that is contorted or some kind of creature or animal walking on four legs. He will find the state that they are most comfortable, and then he will build movements from that point on. This study of movement comes very naturally to Mr. Jones as he studied movement and communication at an early age, getting his undergraduate in communication, minoring in theater, and also being part of a miming troupe, and where he also studied contortionism. Mr. Jones has found that focusing on the body and movement lended well to roles in costume, allowing him to get work very quickly in Hollywood. Um, over the deep dive of Mr. Jones, watching interviews, reading articles, I have come to the conclusion that he takes his craft very seriously, wanting to do the best job possible, and he sacrifices a lot of comfort and time to ensure that he does so. He seems to value the outcome of his work very highly, making sure he gets the shot no matter the discomfort to him. Many of those that work with Mr. Jones will often say that he never complains, regardless of the discomfort he has to endure to make the shot happen. In one instance, a director had to rework an entire shot, not because of Mr. Jones complained, but because he found that he was bleeding from the harness that was attached to him. This is how committed Mr. Jones is to his craft. That said, he seems to value that commitment to work in others also. He speaks very highly of other creature actors and he's worked with, saying that many of them have to deal with harder conditions than himself, and since they don't complain, neither will he. Um, I have been a big fan of Mr. Jones for a long time, but doing this deep dive, I have found a found respect for him and his craft, as I never knew the sacrifices in the way of comfort and time it takes to apply the costume. It could take up to 8 hours before he does a single shot. Knowing this and then watching his performance is unimaginable that he can be so positive and engaging with the other actors and still give an amazing performance after all of that.